जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा, जय बाल गोपाल जय बाल गोपाल, जय बाल गोपाल जय बाल गोपाल, जय गौरानीताय जय गौरानीताय, जय गौरानीताय जय गौ गौरानीताय, जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव। श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय, श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय, श्री गौरनिता की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की जय। So as usual, before we start with Bhagavatam, we'll read from Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita. The title of the chapter is Our Master Has Not Finished His Work. Reason I had set it up to the right place, but it's not going there. Can someone else share the screen for just Prabhupada Leelamrita, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I can share that, but before that, I have to
No, maybe
sharing, stop sharing, and I can.
Yeah, I'll just see if I can go back because it's not very. I had set it up to that page. Just a minute, I'll just get out of here. Pretty straightforward. Okay, we control F. Yes, here it is. Yes, this is where we were. Where we left off a couple of days back. So I'll just continue.
Yes, Mataji, you start from however.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. However, if you are not agreeable to these simple restrictions, still I request you to join the chanting with us. Everybody can do that, and that will gradually clarify everything, and all problems will be solved, and you will find a new chapter of your life. Just this week, I have received a letter from a girl in New Jersey who has had such an experience. She writes, Dear Swamiji, you don't know me by name, but I am the girl who joined your parade in Washington Square this past Saturday. When I first saw your group, I thought you were all crazy, either that or on dope of some kind. After listening and talking with some of you, I realized that it was neither of those. You people plainly believed in what you were doing, and I admired you for that much. But my curiosity drove me further, and I had to find out why. So I followed you, and as I did, the chant you sang began to take hold. The next thing I knew, I felt free of myself, and I was singing too. I didn't know where I was or where I was going, but I was too elated to care. It wasn't until we stopped that I learned where I was. By that time, I had picked up bits and pieces of what Krishna consciousness was about. One of your members asked me to visit your temple, and I followed you still further, hoping to discover just what it was that made you feel so strong about something I'd never heard of. After having taken a meal with you and reading your literature, I left, but not alone. I took with me a new awareness of life. It occurred to me how futile my desires for the material things in life were, that a new dress or big house or color television were not important. If only people would open their eyes to the endless number of pleasures God has already given us, there would be no need for looking any further. You people are truly lucky. You may have had to do without many things, but because of this, you are able to enjoy the simple God given treasures of the world. Because of your beliefs, you are the wealthy, and I thank you for sharing a bit of that wealth with me. So we invite you to please chant with us. It is such a nice thing. Come to our temple if you like, take a little prasadam, and be happy. It is not very difficult if you just chant this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That will save you. Thank you very much, and God bless you. very beautiful section of Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. It almost seems as if he's talking to each one of us in that letter that little girl has written. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We'll continue from here. So as usual, we will sing the invocation prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Tadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविश्रम्भ स्वामी माधव स्वामिन इति नामने गुरुं गौरं गिरिश्रेष्ठं यो विश्रम्भेन सेवते माधवं तुलसी रामकृष्ण कीर्तिकरं स्तुवे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्। So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Srila Prabhupada for writing his books, which are one of his greatest contributions to us. Wonderful literatures like Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and many others, all translated into English for our benefit. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridyantasto Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsadam. So I'm going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31, verse 12. Before I begin, I'd like to thank all of you that are on this forum that have joined us today. And also thank you to the organizers for allowing me to speak and to purify myself. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Kim va yogena sankhena nyasa swadhyaya rodapi kim va shreyobhir annaischa na yatratma pradoharihi. Kim va yogena sankhena nyasa swadhyaya yorapi kim va shreyobhir annaischa na yatratma pradoharihi. Kim va yogena sankhena nyasa swadhyaya yorapi kim va shreyobhir anyaischa na yatratma pradoharihi. Would anyone else like to try?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, I must try.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Kimba Jogeno Sankheno Nasho Shadhaya Yoropi Kimba Seoviranascha No Yatratma Pradohari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam Mataji. Thank you.
Kimba yogeno sankheno nasho swadhyayoropi kimba shreyo bhiranoisya no yatratma pradohari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I am also trying.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes.
Kimba yogena sankhena nyasa saddhaya yoropi kimba sreyo bhirannoischa no jatratma pradohari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, done with pranam. May I try please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mataji.
Kim va yogena shankhena nyasha swabhayaya yorapi kim va sheyobhi anyaischa nayatratma pradohari. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी किं वा योगेन सांख्येन यस् सर्वतो अपि किं वा श्रेयोभिर्न अन्यश्च नायत्रात्मा पदो हरि. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Should we move on to the synonyms? Would anyone like to read the synonyms?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Kim, what is the use? Ba or yogena by mystic yoga practice. Shankhena by the study of Shankha philosophy. Nyasha by accepting Shonnasha. Shraddhayayu by the study of Vedic literature. Api even. Kim, what is the use? Ba or Shreyobhi by auspicious activities. Unknowing other, cho and no never. Jatra where. Atma prada full satisfaction of self. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to read the translation?
Yes, Mataji, I can wait.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead are useless. Be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, severe austerity, the acceptance of sannyasa, or the study of Vedic literature. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement. But unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Anyone for the purport? The
Hare
short
Krishna
purport.
Mataji, I am trying.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhulila 24:109, it is said, Bhakti bina kevalo gyane mukti nahi hoy, bhakti sadhana kore jai prapta brahmalaya. Impersonalists do not take to devotional service, but take to others' practices, such as analytical study of material elements, the discrimination between matter and spirit, and the mystic yoga system. These are beneficial only insofar as they are complementary to devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore told Sanatana Goswami that without a touch of devotional service, Jnana, Yoga, and Sankhya philosophy cannot give one the desired results. The impersonalists wish to merge into the Supreme Brahman. However, merging into the Supreme Brahman also requires a touch of devotional service. The absolute truth is realized in three phases: impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these require a touch of devotional service. Sometimes it is actually seen that these Mayavadis also chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, although their motive is to merge into the Brahman effulgence of the Absolute. The yogis also at times take to chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but their purpose is different from that of bhaktas. In all processes, karma, jnana, and yoga, bhakti is required. That is the purport of this verse. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. A beautiful verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada. So as we saw, this is the chapter, Narada instructs the Prachetas. Let's see what points we can get from today's verse. But to begin with, we'll just talk a little bit about Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses, it's a veritable mine of wisdom. We see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said about Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarvashray Prati Shloke Prati Akshare Nana Artha Kay. Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna, the Supreme Lord and shelter of everything. In each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam and in each and every syllable, there are various meanings. Similarly, we see it's not only full of wisdom and full of teachings for us, but it says in Srimad Bhagavatam again, first canto, Sutta Goswami, when the sages of Naimisharanya are approaching Sutta Goswami, they say this: Vayam tu nat vitriptyama Uttama shloka vikrame yat shrunvatam rasagyanam swadu swadu pade pade. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. Srimad Bhagavatam is that kind of a scripture which gives us a lot of wisdom, and it also gives us in a very beautiful way that we can relish at every moment, at every step. But sometimes when we hear the verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it seems very repetitive. It looks like the same teachings are being repeated again and again and again. Prayers by the great devotees to the Lord, instructions by great devotees of the Lord to everyone. All of these, there are many repetitions in these verses, in these teachings. And sometimes we wonder, why is there this repetition? Why do we need such repetition? Would anyone like to guess or answer?
Krishna Mataji, it is to stress the importance of the particular points, because
Okay.
unless it is repeated, we do not understand what is more important than others. So to
Yes.
stress the importance of those points, sometimes it is repeated.
Yes, sometimes to stress the importance of the points. Any other reason you can think of why repetition could be required?
Mataji, should I?
Yes, please.
Mataji, the thing is, human mind is so contaminated and so polluted
Mm.
that we keep on forgetting the purpose of life,
Mm.
and we are very forgetful people.
Yes,
And that's why the important points are being repeated again and again, so that the purpose is again coming into our mind. Like
correct,
a child, when he
correct.
learns the alphabet, it's like
Correct.
long time we take. Like we
Yes,
need to repeat couple of times, and then child keeps it in the mind. Same
correct,
is the condition of us.
correct. Yes, yes, that's right. And any other reasons you can think of? That's a very good reason that we tend to forget. We are overcome by illusion. Sometimes we get overwhelmed by the modes. That's, we are going through our activities, everyday activities of, firefighting and dealing with our everyday problems. We tend to forget these important instructions. So that's correct. Anything else that you can think of that you think we have to have this kind of repetition again and again?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Pranam Mataji.
All reasons are whatever Mataji and Prabhuji said. They are very good. And one more reason I'm just
Yes,
thinking,
yes,
glories of Lord is so
yeah,
sweet.
yes,
So it gives so pleasure, even though we are hearing again and again, it gives
yes,
pleasure. It is joy,
yes,
joyful. Yeah,
yes. That's
very
right.
good.
It's joyful. That's also a very important point, and I think that is the point I was also thinking of, was that sometimes we may know the theory. There's a difference between knowing. So we read scripture, we hear lectures, and we know the theory. And then based on that knowledge, we might even act on it. So we might know that our function is that we are parts and parcels of the Lord and we have to serve the Lord. And then by hearing that repeatedly, we might also take up the activities of devotional service. And we might do that. But then there's a difference between to know, to do, but the most important thing is to be. To be a devotee is to actually, it's not just knowing or doing those activities, but actually being at the core of our beings, being a devotee, which means basically it requires a transformation of the heart. So unless our heart is transformed, we can't be a devotee. And if once only when we are successful in being a devotee, then we can go back to Godhead, then we can go back to our real world. So through these 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, what 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 is happening is basically our hearts are slowly being transformed. That's the purpose of this repetition. So now we have so many different pastimes throughout the Bhagavatam, and there are different learnings we get through these different pastimes. One of the most important ones that we are hearing about now is about listening to authority. We learn to listen to authority. We have examples from Srimad Bhagavatam of Prithu Maharaj and the Prachetas. Prachetas, especially how they're listening to authority at every step, from their father, from Lord Shiva, from Lord Brahma, and Lord Vishnu, and even now Narada Muni. Then we have learned lessons of humility. The sages of Naimisharanya, Vidura, Parikshit Maharaj, they're all humbly asking for instruction from the great sages, and they're getting instructions from them. Through their humility, they're learning. Then we have lessons of devotional service, which is the topmost. We see Prahlad Maharaj under great duress, under threat to his life, he is remembering the Supreme Lord. And we have Dhruva Maharaj, who's through great determination, he is intent on performing devotional service to the Lord. Then we have the power of association. We learn about the power of association through Bharat Maharaj. With his because of his association with a deer, he has to take the body of a deer. Then we hear the power of the holy name. We learn about the power of the holy name through the great story of Ajamil in Canto 6, where just by chanting the name of Narayana once at the last moment, he gets delivered by the Vishnu Dutas. Then we hear the power of listening to Harikatha. Example that comes to mind is Rukmini. Rukmini, who all she knew about Krishna was through hearing about him. And through that, she was completely transformed and she completely, gave her whole life to Lord Krishna. Then we hear about stories, which is more closer to where we are, making mistakes. And when we get reactions for those mistakes, then we use it to achieve ultimate perfection. Here again, we have example of Parikshit Maharaj, where he garlands Shamika Rishi with a dead snake. And for that offense, he gets disproportionately punished by Shamika Rishi's son to give up his life in 7 days. He uses the 7 days very well and to perfect his life and to go back to Godhead. Then we have example of Vritrasura, that is King Chitraketu. He is punished by Mother Parvati. He is cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon, Vritrasura. And again, even in his life as Vritrasura, he perfects it so that he goes back to Godhead. And there are so many other stories. We have story of Jada Bharata, like Maharaj Bharata, who takes the form of a deer, and then the following life he becomes Jada Bharata, and he uses that life to perfect it. We also have example, like now we are listening to example of listening to authority, but there is the other example also of not listening to authority for a higher principle. And of course, we know that one, which is Bali Maharaj. He's instructed by his guru, Shukracharya, to not give anything to Vamanadev, but he defies him and he gives everything to Vamanadev. So for a higher principle, he doesn't listen to his guru. And we have even Dhruva Maharaj for that matter. Narada Muni first instructs him not to go into the forest, not to perform austerities, but he doesn't listen to him. He says, no, I have made up my mind. I have to perform this devotional service. So all these different pastimes and different learnings we have, and they all practically apply to our lives as well. So today we are reading the story of the Prachetas, pastime of Prachetas. So here we have many important lessons. One of them, of course, is listening to authority. That's the overriding theme, is listening to authority and listening to the instructions and following the instructions of authority. But a few main points that came up in this pastime of Prachetas was, first, that I could think of, was that initially they are repeating the prayers given to them by Lord Shiva, the Rudra Gita given to them by Lord Shiva. So many times we wonder, what is the importance of this? We hear so many such prayers by great acharyas are there in Srimad Bhagavatam, great devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam, like Kunti Maharani, we have Bhishma Dev, and we have the gopis, so many, Gajendra, so many prayers. And we wonder, should we be reciting these prayers or should we be saying our own prayers when we go in front of the Lord? So I was listening to a lecture by my Guru Maharaj, and on the same verse, and he was saying that the great thing about repeating these prayers is that we know that the Lord has been pleased by them. He has appeared before these devotees simply by their saying these prayers. So we know that there is success there. So why should we not repeat those prayers? Why should we not go the same path? We know that it pleases the Lord. So I thought that was very important and very nice. The other thing was that the Prachetas, throughout their lives, they are having repeat lessons throughout. It's an ongoing training. There is no, it's not that it ends at a certain point. It's not that we have finished. Now we have heard from Lord Shiva, so that's it. Our education is complete. No, throughout life, they repeatedly have lessons coming to them, and they are learning from those lessons and applying them. It's similar, we wonder, what is the need for this repeated birth and death? We come into this, we are born, we grow up, we learn something, then we die, then again we are born again. And even, this kind of cyclical process, why is this required? That's because there's so much of learnings we need to get, but we're not getting them in this one lifetime. And so we have to get this repeat opportunities. And there's unlimited opportunities. Krishna never takes away these opportunities. He keeps giving us opportunities even throughout one life. So many times we see similar situations repeating. And we wonder, we give a response once. After some years, again, you'll find a similar situation repeating. It's like a multiple choice exam, and every time we are tested, whether our answers are improving, are we learning something as we go along? So that's how these prachetas are also. They are continuously learning throughout their life, and even at the end, they have Lord Narada himself coming to tell them, instructions again at the final moment. Another thing that came to mind was the sincerity and the openness of the prachetas to instruction. It attracts the Lord and the devotees. It attracted the Lord Vishnu himself, attracted all his devotees to them. So Lord Shiva was the greatest devotee of the Lord, and Narada Muni and Brahma, they all appear to the prachetas simply because of that. So for me, the learning was that if you are sincere and if you're open to instruction, the Lord himself will come, or he will send his devotees to assist and remind you till the very end. So it is in our own advantage to be open to instruction and to be willing to learn. And what is this lessons that we're learning? They're nothing new. It's always back to the basics. So what are these? All these instructions are the same. When you hear Lord Shiva's Rudra Gita or Narada Muni's instructions here, it's saying the same thing, that the Lord is supreme. He's the most powerful controller. Everything rests on him. We are his minute fragmental parts and parcels. We are meant to serve him. And these lessons that they're giving us is also brought to us very closely by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who through his Shikshashtakam, he teaches us, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarora Api Sahishnuna. So we have to be humble at all times. If we have to become a devotee, we have to be humble. Then we have Rupa Goswami telling us again basic instruction in his Nectar of Instruction. He starts with Vacho Vegam, Manasakrodha Vegam. If you want to have any influence in this world, first you have to learn to control yourself. You have to control your own senses and your anger and your urges. Then he says, Atyahara Prayashascha, there are 6 things you must give up, 6 things you must avoid, and 6 things you must take up in order to be successful on this path. And the essence of all instruction he gives us, Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu. So he says the essence of all instruction is that we have to glorify, we have to glorify the name, the form, the activities of the Supreme Lord. We have to Tishthan Vraje, we have to all live in Vrindavan, we have to follow in the path of the great devotees. So these are, it's always back to basics, but these basics we have to know well before we can go any further. And this knowledge that we are getting also is unlike mundane knowledge. So mundane achievements, you might say, okay, I've done a BA, so I'm a BA, I'm an MA, I'm a PhD. But unlike mundane knowledge like that, you've never nailed it. You can never say, I'm done and over with this knowledge, that I have finished learning everything. The more you learn, the more there is to learn, the more there is to perfect ourselves. You can never say that my education is complete. And so even for these prachetas, you have Narada Muni coming to them at the very end. And he's the one who, he's called Narada. He's the one who gives Narayan. So he's giving Narayan to them. He's giving them final instructions at the very end of their lives so that they can become perfect. So this was about the prachetas. Now coming to our current verse today, if you look at the verse, just look at the meaning, they're saying that Narada Muni is saying that transcendental practices, so you might be doing transcendental practices like, spiritual practices, so-called spiritual practices, like you might be doing mystical yoga. So it looks like he said it, very particularly thinking of the prachetas, because they had just been doing meditation, as we heard. They were meditating. They'd gone to renounce everything and they'd gone into the forest and they were meditating. And so he's saying all these, meditation, mystic yoga practices, Ashtanga yoga, analytical study of matter, so Sankhya yoga, or severe austerity, severe tapasya, or even acceptance of sannyasa, or study, swadhyay, or study of Vedic literature. All of these are very important aspects of spiritual advancement. But unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless. So very many times, we see that even amongst ourselves, or even among general people, you see people who will be very, very particular. They'll be very, very particular about doing certain activities. They're doing certain pujas. They want to do those certain pujas. But what is the purpose of it? That is the central point of this verse. They're saying you should know what you're doing. You should know why you're doing it, and it must be for the purpose of pleasing the Lord. So we have, a lot of time we go about this life being very busy. So there's this story of, there's this example that His Holiness S.B. Keshav Maharaj gives in his classes very often. I'll just repeat it. There's a man who's driving along the road and he sees two people on the side of the road. They're digging the ground. So one is digging the ground and removing the mud and throwing it out. And the other one is very busily picking up that mud and throwing it back into this hole. And they're busily doing this activity continuously. One is removing the mud, the other is putting it back in. One is removing the mud, the other is putting it back in. So he's a little bit puzzled, but he carries on, saying, what are these people doing? But he carries on. After about an hour, he's returning back by the same road, and he sees these two people are still at it. They're still doing the same thing. One is digging, one is filling it. So he stops and he says, what are you doing? What is the meaning of your activity? Why are you doing this? What's the purpose of it? So one of them tells him that, we are planting trees. But the third person who is supposed to put in the seed, he's absent today. He's not well. But we can't stop our work. The work has to go on. We have to, continuing. The show has to go on. So we are just continuing. So this is the thing, how pointless is this? How pointless is this? That we don't realize you're digging a hole and filling it up with mud without putting the seed in, which is what is actually going to bring about the tree. So we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma Sanushtita Pumsam Vishwakshena Kathasuya Not Padayed Yadiratim Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. So this Shama Eva Hi Kevalam, it's only useless labor unless all our activities are not aimed towards developing a taste for hearing the holy name or hearing about Lord Krishna, then all those activities are just Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. They're just useless labor. Now, this verse, what we see here, this similar, when we compare it with the last verse that we heard 2 days back from Chitrakrishna Prabhu, that verse also says something similar, but it says that it's talking about our gross and subtle senses, about our mind, and about our intelligence. It says if these things are not used to learn or to serve the Lord, to learn about the Lord or to serve the Lord, then they are meaningless. And this verse, today's verse, is taking it a step further. So it's saying not just any activities, but even so-called transcendental activities, even so-called spiritual activities, if they are not done with the purpose or with the aim of understanding the Supreme Lord, then they are useless, they are meaningless. So basically, if you, another way to put it is, if you remove the spirit, the Supreme Spirit, out of spiritual, then all that remains is a ritual. So we'll just be going about doing rituals every day without it leading to anything unless we put Krishna in the center. And what is this? So we see that to understand Lord Krishna, he's talking here about understanding Lord Krishna. That should be the motive of our activities. But how do we understand Lord Krishna? We see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschashmi tattvataha, that only by devotional service can you know me. You cannot know me by any other way. And there are many other similar verses in scripture we see. So in the Rudra Gita itself, that's a few chapters before this one, where Lord Shiva is telling his prayers to the Supreme Lord. There's a verse which has a similar meaning. It says, Tam duraradhyam aradhya, satam api durapya, ekanta bhaktya ko vanchet, pada moolam vina bahihi. My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge, but devotional service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to other processes of self-realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? And here again, we see Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says the same thing, similar things. That is, you may be a jnani, a yogi, or a bhakta, but unless and until you have bhakti included in any of these processes, it is not taking you anywhere. And of course, we have in Bhagavad Gita itself, chapter 11, after the Lord shows his universal form and then his 200 form finally. Then we have this verse. He says, Lord Krishna says, Naham Vedaya na tapasa, na dane na chejaya, shakya evam vidho drashtum, drishtavan asi mam yatha. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Then how can you see him? So he says in the next verse, Bhaktya tvananyaya shakya aham evam vidho arjuna jnatam drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So that's Bhagavad Gita saying the same thing. Now we come to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. Here we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is speaking with Vallabhacharya. And there he says, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japastapaha Apranashyeva Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. For a person devoid of devotional service, birth in a great family or nation, knowledge of the revealed scriptures, performance of austerities and penance, and chanting of Vedic mantras are all like ornaments on a dead body. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasures of the general populace. So all these other activities, if they're done without devotional service, without a tinge of devotion, they're just meant for general entertainment. So he says it very strongly, but very beautifully expressed. And then this very beautiful verse in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord himself is speaking to Uddhava. And he himself says, what can please him? He says, Na sadhayati mam yogo, na sankhyam dharma Uddhava, na swadhyayas tapasyago, yatha bhaktir mamorjita. My dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me by my devotees brings me under their control. I cannot be thus controlled by those engaged in mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, pious work, Vedic study, austerity, or renunciation. So very beautifully, all these verses are expressing the same sentiment that only by devotional service, you may be doing any other activities, but only by devotional service can you please the Supreme Lord, and only by that will we get perfection in this lifetime. So we are nearly at the end of this pastime of the Prachetas. We are nearly at the end of this chapter, and we are also nearly at the end of Canto 4. So we've heard in Canto 4, we see there are 4 or 5 main pastimes that are there. And to me, it seems like all of them, they're teaching many different things, but essentially there seems to be a common thread, a common theme through all these big major pastimes. So let's look at the first one. We begin this canto with the story of Sati and Shiva and the story of Daksha. So we have Daksha at the beginning of Canto 4, and we see at the end also of Canto 4 here, after the Prachetas leave, they're leaving the kingdom with their son Daksha. So Daksha makes an entrance, a second entrance at the end of Canto 4 also. So in this first section, in this first part of Sati and Shiva, we see that Daksha, he is performing a yajna, and he's performing it with the intention of insulting Lord Shiva by not inviting him. So his motive for performing a spiritual practice, a so-called spiritual practice, a yajna, is to harm or to insult somebody else. Then it's followed by the story of, and of course we see how the story of Daksha, that story of Sati ends, doesn't end very well. It ends with Daksha, Sati immolating herself, and then Daksha, the yajna being destroyed by the ganas of Shiva, and then we see Daksha is given a new life with a goat's head, and so it ends that way, which is not very good. That's not the kind of devotional service we are that's not the kind of spiritual activity we should be performing. The second pastime we have is of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj, he is very determined. he is performing devotional service on the instructions of his mother and Narada Muni, but he's got a great passion. He's got a determination to have a kingdom greater than that of his great grandfather. So again, that is a motivated um, kind of spiritual practice. But Krishna is nevertheless still pleased with him, and he still gets darshan of the Supreme Lord and gets what he wants. This is followed by the story of King Prithu, who's a Shaktiavesh avatar of the Supreme Lord himself, and he is a great administrator, but he rules and he does it as administrative functions in a very God-centered way. He does it, his work, his karma or his work is all done for the pleasure of the Lord, and we see how that goes. He attains perfection in his life. And it's followed by the story of Prachina Barhi, one of the descendants of Prithu Maharaj, who is very engrossed in doing karmakandi activities. So he's engrossed in doing, again, yajna, but for karmakandi purposes, for elevation in this material world. And then he's instructed by Narada Muni, who tells him the story of Puranjana, and then that leads to King Prachina Barhi's deliverance. And finally, now we are at the story of the Prachetas. This is a final concluding pastime, and here again we see how the Prachetas, who are very, very devoted, who are very, very sincere and very humble, and who follow instructions of the acharyas, and how they make their life perfect. So through all of this, we see that, so-called, even if you're doing devotional activities, so-called yajnas or tapasya, whatever you're doing, unless it is for the purpose of pleasing the Supreme Lord, it might not actually lead us anywhere. So for us, the learnings, I thought, from these pastimes and from this pastime especially, is that basically for us, what is our yajna? What is our tapasya? We are not doing yajna and tapasya like these great kings and like these stories we are hearing about. For us, our sacrifice, our yajna and our tapasya is basically doing our prescribed duties and doing our everyday activities. So these activities, we have to infuse it with Krishna. We have to infuse it with service to the Lord, and to make all our activities successful. We mustn't do anything with a negative intention of harming anybody, or initially we might begin with we may have some motive to please the Lord, but eventually we have to know that that is not the perfection, not the way to perfection. And so basically all these other processes, all other so-called processes, devotional processes, are also there only to aid devotional service, and they cannot stand on their own. And so that was my learning from today's class, from today's verse. So I will conclude here, and if anybody else wants to add something or correct or anything I have said, please feel free to say now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for very nicely bringing out the inner points of this verse, particularly the goal of our devotion and the goal of spiritual practices we do, or the devotional service we do. Ultimately, it should bring our attachment to the Lord, and that is the purpose of all our activities, spiritual activities, and devotional service is the means by which we can approach near the Lord. As you have told repeatedly, also it's a just repetition. Only bhakta mamo vijanate. Only the devotees can know the Lord, and they can have through their devotional service they can approach to the Lord. By devotional service, we purify ourselves, and it is the weapon of purify our contamination from this material existence. And in Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is very clearly written, the more we do devotional service, janayati ashu vairagya, it automatically, Vasudeva bhakti yoga prayojita, when we try to perform devotional service or bhakti to the Lord, it automatically purifies us and it gives us the knowledge by which we approach to the Lord. Because God Himself provides the opportunity. Only with His help, sometimes He, as a Paramatma, He instructs us in our mind, or sometimes through His devotees, externally both, so within and without. In both the ways, He helps us to approach to the Lord. And that is the perfection of human life. And that is the goal of life also. And here in this verse, it is told that the Jnana and the other, and the Tapasya, or the other Dhyana, or that is what Dhyana Yoga, what the yogis do. All these are the ways to go to the Lord. But if they do not ultimately lead to the Lord, then it is a futile attempt, as you have very nicely told. Because ultimately we have to go there. If we do not reach our destination, then the process it becomes useless only. Because whatever we do, our purpose is to go to the ultimate destination, that is to have the love of God. And if we fail to do that, then all this process becomes useless. And you have very nicely pointed out, and you have told that in the various, even in this chapter, whole chapter, various points to bring to the point that all this purpose is to go to the Lord, and that is what we want to achieve. And you have very nicely pointed out. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was
once
thinking it's
again,
not.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. And like you were saying, it's not only like devotional service is the means, and it's also the end. Like even when we go back, that's what we are meant to do. That's our goal. We continue devotional service even after we achieve. Thank you very much.
And also it is given in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-6 that Shaboi Pumsham Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Radakshade Ahituki Apratihata Yayatma Suprasiddhi. Ultimately, we have to be completely satisfied, and the process should be uninterrupted and without any motive. These two very important points. So, and that can happen only we approach the Lord, continuously try to do the Lord, and Lord will purify it ultimately. With His help and with the help of His devotees, we can reach there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. If there's no other comments, can we end today's class?
Hare Krishna, Mati.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Thank you for a very nice exposition of this verse, such an important verse. One thing, when you were discussing, I was realizing that repetition
Yes.
is very important, not only for realization, but we have this goal, Ante Narayana Smriti.
Yes.
Unless we keep repeating, we're not going to get this. You know, some of the slokas I learned when I was in the beginning stage of Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
I'm still repeating because then it sometimes just come naturally. You don't need to remember. So it's very important. Some of the prayers or the slokas we know, you have to repeat. It come naturally. Even sometimes we can repeat in the sleep. So
Yeah.
now
Yes.
we are chanting Hare Krishna every day, at least 16 rounds. But
Yeah.
then it's become natural. It just become part of our life.
Yeah.
Right? So
And the beauty of learning some of these verses is that even when you're busy doing other activities like you're cooking or cleaning or anything, you can just say this, where you don't have to sit in one place and read or something. It's there in your head. You can just repeat it in your mind. It's a very powerful way. Thank you, Prabhu.
thank you for bringing this point, Mati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yes, I am also thinking same about that repeating the prayers.
Yes.
It's
Very
so
good.
nice. Otherwise, we forget. If we don't repeat, we forget.
Yes.
Anytime, if we repeat, even mechanically.
Yes.
So it will remember. It's very nice point. Also, I found that whole Canto 4, you have give the summarize. Yes, so I can see what is in the Canto 4. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So there doesn't seem to be any comments, so we close here.
Yes.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च
Vachaka
पतितानां
Tika
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हार तुलसी सेव्या माता जी की जय। प्रभुपाद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरे हरि बोल। All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.